What's going on, everyone? Matt Savoca here from the Stochastic Fantasy Football channel, and I'm back talking Week 5 start-sits at every single position. This is a tough week. A lot of injuries, a lot of tough matchups, and some players who are just simply underperforming compared to their draft-based expectations, so we might have some players on the bench that we actually should slide in to the starting roster. I'll go position by position, give you at least one, usually a few starters who I'm starting with confidence, and then a player who you might not expect that I'd rather have on the bench at least for this week. We are brought to you today by our friends over at Underdog. Check out the action over there. Starting in week 6, they got the Best Ball Resurrection Tournament. Just a $10 entry can net you up to $100,000, and promo code Stochastic could get you a $100 first match deposit bonus. Easy as that. Let's get into the action for week 5. This is a tough one. We'll start at the running back position, and boy, has this been a dumpster fire this year. Outside of a few overperformers named Saquon Barkley, everyone else has essentially been a disappointment. So finding some diamonds in the rough is particularly hard this week, but I like Devin Singletary of the Buffalo Bills going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, the Bills like to pass. They're number 4 in the NFL in pass plays per game, number 1 in pass rate over expectation. So if you're a running back on that team, you better catch passes, and that's what Singletary is doing right now. He's top 10 in targets, top 5 in total receptions in the NFL at his position, and he's actually underperforming compared to his opportunity-based expectations. He's still a surefire every week RB2, but with the red zone touches starting to creep up and the matchup as solid as can be against a Pittsburgh defense that's underperforming this year, we have to start home running backs favored by 2 touchdowns. That means we are starting Devin Singletary with confidence. I expect him to be heavily involved in especially a second half mop-up effort. Singletary will get spelled for Zach Moss at times, but I think we're going with Singletary the starter with confidence against the Steelers in week 5. A little bit further down the list, I'm looking at Rhamondre Stevenson. Now, I don't have him as a top 20 overall running back, but I do think he's a flex starter against the Detroit Lions this weekend. Speaking of heavily involved, the running backs in New England will have to be heavily involved, whether it's Bailey Zappi or Brian Hoyer behind center, or maybe even Mac Jones finds a way to get back onto the field. They're going to want to run some more. And even pre-injury, the Patriots were top 8 in the NFL in run rate over expectation. Now they get a putrid Detroit defense who was absolutely decimated by Rashad Penny and the Seattle Seahawks on the ground in week 4. Yes, I know that Stevenson will split carries with Damian Harris, but Harris popped up on the injury report, and Stevenson has been honestly the more efficient back. 8th in yards per touch, top 5 in evaded tackles per touch. Stevenson has a great matchup and looks great on the field. I'm going with him as a flex play this week. And here's my first surprising sit. I'm not going with Ezekiel Elliott against the Los Angeles Rams in week 5. The Rams have been bad against the pass this year, surprisingly bad, but they're really good against the run, and I mean really good. Number 1 in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position by a mile so far this season, and Elliott's opportunity numbers, they've actually been pretty bad. Running back 21 in opportunity share, running back 46 in targets, running back 38 in fantasy points per game, and 1 total touchdown. That is simply not going to get it done. This has been gross from an opportunity standpoint, from a production standpoint, and now from a matchup standpoint, it couldn't be worse. Zeke Elliott is on my bench week 5. Heading over to the wide receiver position, the first flex starter I've got for us is Robert Woods against the Washington Commanders. Treylon Burks, the first-round pick of the Tennessee Titans, is out indefinitely with turf toe. It looked worse than it initially seems like it's going to be, but he was carted off the field. We saw tight end Chig Okonkwo extremely involved last week. I don't think that's going to hold from week to week. Woods, on the other hand, has been steadily increasing in opportunity. 6.5 targets per game over the last 2 weeks on just a 70% snap share. I expect that to increase slightly, and I expect the volume to increase as well. This is a great matchup against a bottom 5 Washington defense who can't stop anyone in any receiving core, and Woods is now clearly the number 2 overall option on the Tennessee offense behind Derrick Henry. Robert Woods, a pretty solid flex play, even in shallow leagues. I'm going with him against a bad Washington defense, again, with confidence. And I kind of hinted at this earlier. I'm going to be targeting players facing the Los Angeles Rams secondary much more than I expected at the beginning of the season. So Michael Gallup really caught my eye this week. Again, going against the Rams, he just ran 23 routes in his first game back last week. That was 85% of Dallas's total passing plays. Saw just 3 targets, 13% target rate, that's targets per route run. and his solid 2 catches was only important because one of them was in the end zone. In my opinion, that was the game where he got his feet under him. Now it's time to shine. CeeDee Lamb will see a ton of Jalen Ramsey, so I'm concerned about that one-on-one matchup, but Gallup will see, well, he'll see anybody else on that defense, and they have been the biggest pass funnel defense in the NFL this year. They are number 1 in rush defense, but bottom 5 in pass defense and adjusted fantasy points allowed this year. Enter Cooper Rush and this rolling Dallas offense, even without Dak Prescott. I actually like Dallas on the road against the spread, and I like Gallup to overperform his expectations. Put him in the flex spot. And as a sit at the wide receiver position, this one makes me a little nervous, but I'm calling my shot. This is not a Marquise Brown week. Going against the Philadelphia Eagles, I realize that Brown has been excellent from an opportunity standpoint. He's number 3 in the NFL in targets, number 20 in air yards. He asked to be a number 1 wide receiver when he got traded, and he's being treated like a number 1 wide receiver in Arizona. But this is going to be a down week against a Philly defense that has been as dominant as the offense has been on the other side of the ball. The defense might honestly be the bigger story this year. They're number 2 in adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing offenses, up there with the elite defenses like Buffalo. They're especially stingy against wide receiver 1 so far this year. The Cardinals, I realize, will try to get Brown involved because they are just simply banged up in the receiving core. But will they be successful? That's the part I'm calling my shot on. I don't think they will be. I think Marquise Brown is a sit this week unless you have no better options at the wide receiver position. Hey guys, just want to tell you about this awesome offer we have going on from our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy truly is an amazing place to play best ball fantasy football. You just draft a team and you win huge prizes. No trades, no waiver wires, no setting your lineups. You just draft and you win. And if you thought best ball summer was fun, well, best ball fall is going to be just as fun. They got the best ball resurrection tournament going from week 6 to week 17. Just a $10 entry fee could net you $100K for first place. And when you sign up using promo code STOCHASTIC, STOKASTIC, they will match your first deposit up to $100. That's free money. That's hard to come by in fantasy football. Take advantage today at Underdog Fantasy. Promo code STOCHASTIC. At the tight end position, I'm going with Hayden Hurst as a starter this week against Baltimore. Baltimore as a defense has not been very good. Now, they kind of settled down against Buffalo last week, but it still didn't result in a win. And the weeks before that, they were giving up chunk yardage all over the place. And Hurst has been heavily involved, at least from a route participation rate, on this Bengals offense. He's tight end 8 in routes run, tight end 16 in target share, and tight end 29 in terms of share of team air yards. I guess that's what happens when you share the field with big playmakers like Chase and like T. Higgins. But he's a respectable top 15 in expected fantasy points per game, top 16 in actual fantasy points per game. And as I said, the matchup against a Baltimore secondary that continues to struggle is better than most people realize. This is a bottom 5 team in adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing receiving cores. That means there's solid shootout potential here. Hayden Hurst on the field a ton, clearly a third option in the receiving game, but I'm sliding him into the starter position at tight end this week. And on the opposite side, I'm sitting Pat Freiermuth against Buffalo. I realize Freiermuth, again, has 3 games with 7+ targets, and many people would be begging for 7+ targets for their tight end 1. And he's got 2 games with 9+ targets. I get it. He's been a volume monster with Mitchell Trubisky. I'm concerned about Kenny Pickett moving in and changing the target distribution of this team. He's been great so far. Tight end 6 in receiving yards, tight end 7 in fantasy points per game, but I'm benching him this week because of the concerns. Obviously, the matchup is bad. They are more than 2 touchdown underdogs on the road in Buffalo. Will they be able to score at all? There's essentially no tight end touchdown upside here. He's only had 3 red zone targets this season, so he needs that volume, which we can't guarantee at this point. Usually when you're targeted on 29% of your routes run, like Freiermuth has been this season, you're just good, and we'll see Pickett come in and recognize that right away. He's a solid talent, but it's a bad matchup, and there are question marks in terms of volume. That's enough for me to put him on the bench, at least for 1 week. And we finish with some streaming quarterbacks. If you're looking for a starter, Jameis Winston is there for you. I know he might be hurt, and I realize that there is a small chance he misses another week, but I don't think that's the case. Hopefully his health has improved after missing that London game in week 4. And while it might look a little different from a play calling perspective for Jameis Winston in New Orleans compared to Tampa Bay, he's still the same old Jameis Winston. He's quarterback 4 in air yards per game, quarterback 1 in air yards per attempt, and not overly impressive from an advanced metric standpoint. QB 28 in QBR and QB 29 in expected points added per play. So it comes down to matchup for me, right? Is the defense bad enough for Jameis to be able to air it out and actually succeed for a huge game? And that is what I think is going to happen this week. Seattle is bottom 5 in adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing QBs and to offenses in general. They're dead last in Football Outsiders past DVOA, and the Saints are favored by 6 at home. I realize that might look like a running back heavy game, but Kamara's hurt as well. Winston, who continues to air things out and have options in the passing game, I think is a solid start against Seattle this week. And if you watched Monday Night Football, you might have an idea about who I'm benching this week at the quarterback position. It's Matthew Stafford. I mean, this offense outside of Cooper Kupp does not look like they have anything figured out, and they are facing a Dallas defense that has been phenomenal. I mean, in Dallas, Cooper Rush is getting all the credit for keeping the offense afloat, but the Dallas defense is 5th best in the NFL in past DVOA, 3rd best in adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing QBs, just ahead of the San Francisco 49ers, who absolutely made Stafford look silly in week 4. And the Los Angeles Rams offense, again, outside of Kupp, looks downright bad. Stafford's not helping things. He's QB 12 in pass attempts, QB 18 in air yards, and QB 29 in fantasy points per game. That's not good efficiency metrics. The advanced metrics look like there's a little bit of bounce back potential, but not elite offense level bounce back potential, especially in a tough matchup. I like Dallas on the road against the spread, as I said earlier, and I'm sitting Stafford until I see a better performance. And that's going to do it, guys. My top starts and sits at every position in the NFL for week 5. This is a tough week, as I said up top, for fantasy football, so leave your comments and questions below. We try to get to every single one in every single video. We've got so much help for you over on the Stochastic Fantasy Football channel. We've got live videos every Tuesday through Friday helping you with your toughest start to sit decisions. We've got a live stream before Thursday Night Football and before the main slate on Sunday as well. And we've got the whole Notorious Fantasy channel by Stochastic as well. Make sure to check all those things out and check out our friends over at Underdog Fantasy as well. Good luck in week 5. We'll be back soon enough. My name is Matt Savoca from Stochastic Fantasy Football. We'll see you guys later.